now that you know that it's made it to the reports colon stage, you know that it's at least, I call it the reports colon stage.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the headline, it's reports colon blah, 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 blah. Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals are now listening to trade offers. Apparently, this is my read on the situation where Cincinnati is like, okay, if you really want to go somewhere else, we can start to put this in motion.
I would say no. I would say this is more the player and the player's agent being a little bit less comfortable with the spot that they're in now, knowing that the start of the season is coming. And if he is going to switch teams, it's going to have to happen now. The cut down is next week.
Right.
And that's a critical point, for teams in building their rosters. And that's a really important date, because that's when salary cap issues start to get managed, and you have to be in compliance, and so like I just to give everybody the landscape here, I don't think the Bengals were ever not listening to offers on Trey Hendrickson. It's just going to be really hard to find a team that's willing to give up picks, a player, because that's going to be part of the equation, and the contract that it's going to take to make Trey Hendrickson whole. Now, do we want to go over what the problem is here?
Before we do that, the idea that, because the Bengals were asking for a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Now, the only way that I could see this working is if you were at the very, very bottom, and you know that you're going to continue to be at the very, very bottom of the draft order, where your first-round pick is essentially a second-round pick. So we're talking about the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Commanders, the Lions, the Ravens, maybe the Vikings, the Chargers, the Steelers, those teams. But in most of those cases, those are the strength of the AFC. The Bengals are hoping to contend for a playoff spot here. You're not going to trade Trey Hendrickson to a contender for a crappy back end of the first round pick. And I don't think any of these teams are giving up
especially because
that
pick, like, I mean, and I think too often people don't look at the juncture of the calendar. If you're trading him in March, that first round pick is going to help you this year.
Right.
You trade him in August, that first round pick is going to do nothing for you in the here and the now. And they think they've got a really good team. And, really, like, the basis of their team right now is their offense should be like out of this world good. The day I was there, the ball hit the ground twice. Like, I'm just telling you, I think the Bengals offense has a chance to be record breaking this year. Like, they're that good. And I think Burrow could wind up being the MVP of the league. Yeah.
Boomer used to pick the Bills 49. What is it, like the Bills to go to the Super Bowl like 9 straight years? What was the thing?
I mean, are you saying that I'm that with the Bengals now?
No. It's me. So I'm getting to that part of the story, but I'm asking you because you're just a tiny bit older.
He was half right. Like, I think he wound up being half right, however many years in a row it was, because it would have been like, so 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94. Yeah. 94. So that would have been 7 years in a row that one or the other made it, but they were never in it together.
So we have, at SI, we pick the preseason MVP and we put it in the preview magazine. And so I'm sitting there and I'm working with Matt and Gilberto, two of our staff writers on this project. And I'm saying it's got to be Joe Burrow, because he's going to have to do it himself. This defense is not going to be very good. They're going to have to score 35 points a game. They don't even have a running game. He's going to throw for 5,500 yards this year. It's going to be insane. And so I turn in the pick and I turn in the project, and they said, Conor, you've picked Joe Burrow to win MVP every year for the last 3 years. You are not allowed to pick Joe Burrow to win MVP again. And I said, I understand the boy who cried wolf thing, but I actually mean it this year. Like, I really mean it. And you have to let me do it one more time.
Though. Here's the argument for it. They've never had an offseason like this before. Like, they've never had, like, what's amazing about what they've done offensively over the last 5 years is that they never had a normal offseason. 2020 was COVID. 21, Burrow's coming off the ACL. 22, I believe, was at the appendicitis year, right?
22 was the deep Super Bowl run year. No?
No. 21 was the Super Bowl run coming off the ACL.
Oh, that's right.
22.
And then 22 was the appendicitis. 23 was the calf.
Right, was the calf. And then last year was the wrist plus.
Oh, that's right.
Plus the receiver contract situations.
Yeah.
Right? So they have legitimately never, him, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, have legitimately never had and I'm going to tease a story that I'm going to do here, but like they were able to get to stuff much earlier this year than they ever have before. So just think about the context of that. If they're able to stay healthy, right? Like what they're going to be able to do. The offensive line like comes back like really without incident. They've got a rookie they're adding in Dylan Fairchild that they really like to the mix. They've never had a pass catching tight end 2 years in a row since Burrow has been there. They'll have that this year with Gesicki. Andre Sivas like is somebody that really has earned Joe Burrow's trust. They're going to be out of this world on offense, I think. Right.
I think so too.
So just to back up your MVP pick. And I think that the premise is if we can just be middle of the pack on defense, right?
Just
it's
around.
Almost like the old Indianapolis Colts. Like, can you have a defense that can play with a lead? And what do you need to play with a lead if you're a defense?
Pass rush, pass rush, pass
right.
rush. Pass
it's the
rush.
Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis thing.
Right.
So, like, if you can have Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart, if you can get Shamar Stewart going, you know, like how much more effective can those guys be if it's 20-0 constantly, you know? So like, I think that's a huge part of the equation here is, you know, where they are as a team and how a huge part of their team is going to be, can we just get to the point where we can build a defense that can play with a lead? And, you know, there's a lot on Al Golden to do that and to create that. And I think one of the reasons why Zach Taylor really liked Al coming from Notre Dame is that when you're at the college level, you have to be a little bit simpler.
Yep.
So, like, you know, are they going to be able to get some of their younger players up and running faster now because they have, you know, a guy who was at the college level the last 3 years? Like, I think that's, you know, there's a good logic there. I really like where their team is, you know, and this should be the type of year that you're all in for. So why, if you're that team, would you trade Trey Hendrickson without getting something back that's going to help you this year? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, the problem is here's the problem. This is a long way of us getting to the problem, but the problem isn't like the big numbers there. Like, they are like well into the 30s, if not close to 40 in average per year. So that's not the problem. The problem is the guarantees. And for the Bengals, this is about precedent. And I think for Hendrickson, this is about pride. So the Bengals have had all these contract rules and precedents, and they broke them to sign Joe Burrow. And then they had the 2 receivers this offseason. And the nuance to it is they broke their rules again to sign Jamar Chase, but they didn't break them on the Higgins contract. They essentially treated Chase like he was an exception, the same way they treated Burrow like he was an exception, right? Which brings you to the pride part of it if you're Trey Hendrickson, right? Because you've been asking for this for 3 years. You signed your contract with the team in the offseason that was affected by COVID, which was 2021. They got you at a depressed rate. 2 years in, you looked for a market correction. You got a 1-year Band-Aid extension. You went back to them last year. You tried to get something done. Nothing happened. They told you have to wait. So you wait. And now you've waited really for two full off seasons and now into a third off season to try to get the sort of contract that'll set you up for the rest of your life. So he's waited. And now, like, even with the big number, you're putting me in the Higgins bucket because of my age, but I'm this old now because I waited, you know? So there's those sorts of elements that are in play here. And I think really the solution is going to have to be the Bengals have to find a way to middle this and make it look like it's a win for Trey because of the pride element of it, you know? And so Trey's a little bit of a different guy. And I think that part of it to me is really, really, really interesting. And again, like, I think their discomfort with the situation is why this became news over the weekend, because the agent side of this is, well, we have to generate something. We have to make something happen.
Right.
So this is how you do it. You know what I mean? The truth is that Bengals have been listening for a while, and if anybody asked them on what it would take, it would be, we need a defensive player, we need picks. And so if you're another team, now you're talking about trading for a 31-year-old pass rusher who is a great player, right?
Yes.
35 sacks the last 2 years. But if you're another team, are you willing to give up a current defensive player, picks, which means that's going to be cost-controlled players going forward, and the contract?
This year, the MMQB is playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Guys, for me, anytime that I go to open up a new league with friends, anytime that I'm playing on Sunday, I am on Yahoo Fantasy. It's got all the best updates. It's got the fastest notifications for when you get a touchdown, when you get a score. It's the absolute best. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one left standing. And with the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/MMQB. That's yahoofantasy.com/MMQB. This feels like, what's the perfect example of it? It's almost like a seafood restaurant where on Friday, they're like, hey, fresh halibut, check this out. And then kind of no one shows up. And then on Saturday,
the halibut's still there 3 days later.
Yeah, on Saturday, they're like, halibut sandwiches, we'll cover it in cheese, with toasted bread. It's going to be great. And then on Sunday, you still got a lot of halibut. And they're like, shit, halibut soup, we're going to throw it in the soup. And now we're going to sell it for like $3 instead of $21. And we're just going to chunk it up and just hope to God that somebody eats it before we have to throw it away and all the seagulls eat it. That feels like where we're at. And for people who don't understand how the sausage is made, I'm glad that you corrected me. I thought it was more of a team thing where it's like, we're going to give this one more shot and refresh this, but it sounds like an agent thing because they did get permission to seek a trade a while ago. It's like, hey, we're just going to let everybody know, like, we got this sale going on and you should really check it out before the summer's over. And in that way, it feels
because
like,
once you get past, Conor, the reality is once you get past the cut down, I think these things become harder to do. You know what I mean? Like these things become, because at that point you've got your team set, and I just feel like the discussions that are happening internally with teams right now are like, what do we still need? Right. Like, so we have 2 preseason games. We have, basically a full camp. At this point, everybody sort of goes into regular season mode with their schedule. So this is when, like, the coaches and the personnel people are kind of looking at it and saying, what do we still need? What are we still missing? So this is when you would make that trade. Like once you get past the cut down, you're sort of, not that you can't make a move, but you're kind of like, all right, like, we feel comfortable with where we're at. And so it's just the dynamic changes once you get past the cut down, which I think is what, next Tuesday or Wednesday. Is that right?
yes,
I should know this. I'm not sure exactly what the date is.
I think it's Wednesday.
Okay.
But you're right. And I don't know. I mean, God, he can't play left tackle, so the Giants don't need him, or right tackle, so the Giants don't need him. But it's one of those things. I just happened to get done watching Giants film right before we started taping this, and it was still bothering me. But
we're going to get to that, right?
I think we're going to get to that. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I just feel like, I don't know. In a way, this news makes me more hopeful than ever that Trey Hendrickson is a Bengal, because by going through this exercise, it means that you are on your last gasp as a player.
Yep.
Before being able to, I don't know. Before being able to just accept the fact that you're not going to get what you want.
Right.
What I mean?
And I think, like, look, like if this, like, let's just say the number is 38 or 39. I think it's really hard to walk away from that. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
Even if there aren't guarantees into the second year. And it's like, I think the Bengals have to know that. And part of this is knowing the psychology of your player. So how do we take our current offer and sweeten it in a way where it looks like he won, where it doesn't like screw us with the rest of our roster and it doesn't screw our precedents. And we can look at like another player on our roster and say with a straight face, like, no, like this is something that like we did for a guy who had 35 sacks and waited 3 off seasons. There's got to be a way to figure out where that middle ground is. And I have to think that they'll get there. Now I'm not certain because this thing is so complicated and I think it's been unpredictable from the start, but like, it's just a lot to ask another team to be giving up what it's going to take to get him, especially like if we were talking about Micah Parsons here, like that's a guy you can build around for the next 5 years. You know what I mean? Like Trey Hendrickson, I don't think he's at the end, but can you count on him being there in like 28 or 20? Because that's what you're talking about. When you're talking about giving up a first round pick, like that player is still going to be on his rookie deal in 2028.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so like that to me is like sort of what makes this whole thing difficult.